Every morning, millions of Americans make their coffee, dump the grounds in the trash,
These
and
leaves
walk
are
out to a garden
wilting.
that isn't
Let
growing the
me
way it
check the
should.
soil.
What if I told you that what you just threw away was exactly what your soil needed?
Sprinkle used
I'm
coffee
going to
grounds
show you
around your
3
plants.
specific ways
Then
to
mix
use
them into
coffee
the
grounds in
soil
your
to
garden,
enrich it.
starting right now. And the third method is one that most gardeners have never heard of, but it's the fastest way to get results. Stay with me. If you want practical, low-effort ways to build better soil without spending money, subscribe. New tip every week, all free. Let's get straight into it. Here are the 3 methods in order from easiest to most powerful. Take your used coffee grounds, the wet ones left in the filter after brewing, and sprinkle them thinly and evenly over the surface of your garden bed, no thicker than 1/4 inch. Then use a small rake or your fingers to scratch them lightly into the top inch of soil. That's it. Do this once a week, and your soil will begin to change within a month. The key word there is thinly. This is where most people go wrong. They pile the coffee grounds up around their plants, thinking more is better. It isn't. A thick layer of coffee grounds forms a dense, water-repelling crust on the soil surface. It actually stops rain and irrigation from soaking in. Thin and scattered always wins over thick and concentrated. If you're building a compost pile or a layered lasagna garden bed, coffee grounds are one of the best green layers you can add. Green layers are nitrogen-rich materials that accelerate the breakdown of brown carbon-rich materials, like dry leaves and cardboard. Add your coffee grounds directly to the pile, or spread them between the brown layers of your lasagna bed. They will break down quickly and enrich the finished compost with nutrients and microbial activity. If you drink 2 cups of coffee a day, you'll generate enough grounds to meaningfully contribute to a compost pile every single week. This next one is the method most people have never tried. It's called a liquid soil drench, and it's essentially homemade compost tea made from coffee grounds. Here's how you make it. Take 2 to 3 cups of used coffee grounds and add them to a 5-gallon bucket of water. Stir well and let it sit overnight, or up to 24 hours. The next morning, the water will have turned a rich, dark brown, and the soluble nutrients from the grounds will have leached out into the water. Pour this liquid slowly and evenly over your garden bed. The nutrients go directly into the root zone, bypassing the slow breakdown process entirely. Plants can access them within days, not weeks. If you've been struggling with pale, tired-looking plants that don't respond to anything else you've tried, this method is worth doing this weekend. Now, why does any of this work? Let me explain the science quickly, because once you understand it, you'll use coffee grounds more confidently and get better results. Used coffee grounds contain 3 primary nutrients your soil needs: nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. If you've ever read a bag of synthetic fertilizer, you've seen those 3 letters, NPK, on the front. Coffee grounds contain all 3. The difference between synthetic fertilizer and coffee grounds is how those nutrients are delivered. Synthetic fertilizer releases everything at once, creating a sharp spike followed by a crash. Coffee grounds release slowly, over weeks and months as they break down in the soil. No spike, no crash. Just steady, gentle, consistent feeding, which is exactly what plant roots prefer. Strong growth happens with steady nutrition, not bursts. Coffee grounds also have a second benefit that most gardening guides never mention. They feed earthworms. Earthworms are attracted to the organic matter in used coffee grounds and will actively move toward them in the soil. More earthworms means more aeration, better drainage, faster breakdown of organic matter, and a more active biological community throughout your entire bed. One simple habit: saving your coffee grounds instead of throwing them away sets off a chain reaction underground that improves your entire garden over time. Now, let me address something that might be in the back of your mind. You may have heard that coffee grounds make soil acidic. This is one of the most persistent myths in home gardening, and it's worth clearing up because it stops a lot of people from using coffee grounds at all. Here's the truth. Fresh, unbrewed coffee grounds are moderately acidic, but used coffee grounds, the kind left over after brewing, have a pH that is very close to neutral, typically between 6.5 and 6.8. The reason is simple. The acidic compounds in coffee are water-soluble. They dissolve into your cup of coffee, not into the grounds. What's left behind after brewing is close to pH-neutral material. In normal garden quantities, a cup or two per week spread over a standard raised bed, used coffee grounds will not meaningfully change your soil pH. They will, however, meaningfully change your soil's biological activity, its nitrogen content, and its ability to support earthworms. So stop worrying about the pH and start saving the grounds. One more thing before we move on. Don't apply coffee grounds directly to seedlings or very young plants. The caffeine residue in used grounds, while minimal, can slightly inhibit germination and early root development. Wait until plants are established, at least 3 to 4 inches tall with their second set of true leaves, before applying grounds directly to the soil around them. For mature established plants, there's no concern at all. Now, let's talk about one of the most practical aspects of this habit. Where to get enough coffee grounds. If you drink 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day, you'll generate enough grounds to treat a standard garden bed once a week. That's the ideal application frequency. But if you want more, and more is better here, as long as you apply it correctly in thin layers, there's an almost unlimited free supply available to you. Coffee shops go through enormous quantities of ground coffee every day. Starbucks, in particular, has had a long-standing program of giving away used grounds to gardeners. Many local cafes do the same. Walk in, ask if they save their used grounds, and most of the time, they'll bag them up for you. Some will even set them aside regularly once they know you're coming. A single busy cafe can produce more grounds in one morning than you could use in a month. The grounds are free. They would otherwise go to waste, and you're doing the cafe a favor by taking them. At home, collect your grounds in a small bowl or container on the kitchen counter. Let them air dry slightly between uses if you're accumulating them over several days. Wet grounds sitting in a sealed container can develop mold. A loose-lidded container or a mesh bag works perfectly. Once a week, take whatever you've collected and apply it to the garden using one of the 3 methods we covered. Let me now walk you through what consistent coffee ground use looks like over a full growing season. In more detail because the results are cumulative, and understanding the timeline helps you stay patient and committed to the habit. In the first 2 weeks of applying coffee grounds, you probably won't see dramatic changes above ground. This is completely normal and expected. What's happening is underground. The grounds are beginning to break down. Soil microbes are waking up and responding to the new nitrogen source. And earthworms are beginning to move toward the treated areas. If you gently disturb the soil in the area where you applied grounds, you may already notice earthworm activity. More worms present than in untreated sections of the same bed. This is your first confirmation that the method is working. By weeks 4 to 6, the changes become more visible. The soil surface in the treated area looks darker. When you pick up a handful and squeeze it, it feels more crumbly and alive than soil that hasn't been treated. If you've been using the liquid drench method alongside the surface application, you may already see a difference in your plants. Slightly deeper green leaf color, slightly more vigorous new growth. These are not dramatic transformations. but they are real and measurable. By midsummer, after 3 to 4 months of consistent weekly application, the improvement in your bed is significant. The soil holds moisture longer after watering. The biological activity is visibly higher. More earthworms, more mycelium. Visible when you disturb the surface layer. A richer, darker color throughout the top 4 to 6 inches. Plants grown in this bed show stronger stems, better leaf color, and in the case of tomatoes and peppers, better fruit set, and fewer problems with blossom end rot. By the end of the season, you will have built a meaningfully better growing environment than you started with, entirely for free, using material you were throwing away every morning. And the following spring, you start from that improved baseline. Each year compounds on the last. This is the real power of the habit. One thing I want to address directly is the question of how coffee grounds compare to synthetic fertilizers in practical terms. A lot of gardeners who are used to using granular or liquid synthetic fertilizers worry that switching to organic inputs like coffee grounds means giving up results. I want to be honest with you about this. In the short term, in the first few weeks of a growing season, synthetic fertilizers can produce faster, more visible results. That's true. But in the medium and long term, gardens managed with consistent organic inputs, like coffee grounds, dry leaves, kitchen scraps, and compost, consistently outperform gardens that rely on synthetic fertilizers alone. The reason is biological. Synthetic fertilizers feed plants directly, but do nothing for the soil biology. The microbes, the earthworms, the fungal networks that make soil genuinely productive. Over time, synthetic fertilizer used without organic matter addition depletes the biological life in soil, leading to a cycle where you need more and more fertilizer to get the same results. Organic inputs do the opposite. Each application builds the soil's capacity to support plant growth, not just for this season, but for every season that follows. Coffee grounds are one small but consistent part of that building process. Used every week, season after season, they become part of a soil management system that gets better over time rather than degrading. Let me also share something about this habit that most gardening content never addresses, and that's what consistent observation does for you as a gardener. When you start applying coffee grounds weekly and paying attention to how your soil responds, you naturally develop what experienced gardeners call soil intuition. It sounds mysterious, but it's actually very practical. You begin to notice things you never noticed before. You notice that after a week of coffee ground applications, the soil surface near your tomato plants looks and feels different, slightly darker, slightly more crumbly. You notice that after rain, the treated areas drain differently than the untreated areas. You notice earthworms coming to the surface in the treated zones when conditions are right. You notice that the plants in the treated bed have a slightly different quality to their growth. Not dramatically different at first, but cumulatively different over weeks and months. These observations made consistently over a full season teach you more about how your soil works than any gardening book can. And that knowledge compounds. Every observation you make this season makes you a better gardener next season. Every small thing you notice about your soil, its color, its texture, how it behaves after rain, what lives in it, adds to a practical understanding that eventually becomes second nature. Now, I want to talk about what to do in each season, because the way you use coffee grounds should shift slightly depending on where you are in the growing year. In early spring, before you've planted anything, spread coffee grounds over the entire bed surface and scratch them in. This primes the soil's biological activity for the season ahead. Soil microbes have been mostly dormant through winter, and the nitrogen and organic matter from coffee grounds gives them something to work with as temperatures rise. Do this once in early spring, before your first transplanting or seed sowing. During the active growing season, from late spring through midsummer, apply coffee grounds once a week, using the direct incorporation method. If your plants are heavy feeders, like tomatoes, peppers, or squash, supplement with the liquid drench method once every 3 weeks. This combination of slow surface application and occasional liquid delivery gives your plants both a steady background supply of nutrients and a faster absorbing boost during critical growth periods. In late summer, when your plants are in full production, focus on the liquid drench method. By this point in the season, the surface layers of your bed have already absorbed several months of coffee ground applications, and the soil biology is active and well established. The liquid drench gets nutrients directly to where they're needed most, the root zone of plants under production stress. In autumn, after you clear your beds for the season, apply a final layer of coffee grounds to the surface and leave it on top without scratching it in. Over winter, rain and frost will work it into the soil naturally. By the following spring, you'll find that the soil has improved measurably from the previous year, and your starting point for the new season is better than where you ended the last one. That compounding effect, each season building on the last, each free input adding to the soil's mineral and biological profile, is the core of everything we talk about. You're not trying to fix your garden in one season. You're building it layer by layer, habit by habit, year by year. Coffee grounds are one of the simplest and most reliable tools for doing exactly that. Free, available every morning, effective when used correctly, and completely aligned with how healthy soil actually works. The best gardens in America are not built with expensive products. They're built with good habits, practiced consistently over time. This is one of those habits. If you've been using coffee grounds in your garden already, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment below and tell me which method you use, or if you're going to try the liquid drench for the first time this week. I read every single comment. If this story changed the way you look at the waste in your kitchen, please subscribe and like the channel. We are uncovering the secrets of the earth that have been overlooked for too long. Let's grow the future together. The next treasure of the soil will be revealed soon.